Hello, everybody, and welcome to Breaking Ponies, where we're still recovering from the crash.
Yes, it wasn't very fun at all.
Now we have to recover in bed with a bandage over our skulls. I don't know. Uh, we have several episodes for you today. Same number as always, three, which seems to be the running theme with this series.
I
I don't
I
know what
was
I'm
gonna
saying right now.
say, yeah,
I don't know what
I
I'm saying right now. Let's move
completely.
on. Let's
We're still
jump.
recovering. It's the brain injury, you see. It
Yes,
affects them in certain
yes,
ways.
yes, yes. Let's jump right into it. I did not write down the name of this episode.
The Super Speedy Cider Squeezy 6000.
Okay.
It's a long one.
Super Speedy Cider Squeezy 6000, which kind of sounds like the Super Mecha Death Christ 9000.
Yeah, something like that.
But it's Cider Day, which is a big event that the ponies care so much about that they actually go camping out. So it's kind of like the launch of a new game console.
Yeah, in which we discovered that Rainbow Dash has a bit of a problem. Like she is obsessed with cider.
Even though
Like
she never seems to get any.
Well, it's just kind of weird that they seem to go completely nuts for cider, and it's kind of weird that Rainbow Dash goes completely nuts for it. You think she's an alcoholic? Literally, how mad she goes for this. I want
Maybe
cider.
she's an appleholic.
Well, people argue, maybe their cider is an alcoholic, but they do have non-alcoholic cider. It's called apple juice.
No, they have non-alcoholic cider as well. It's just
Well, I know.
we haven't really mentioned this, but there is sort of a connection between apples and horses. Horses do tend to enjoy apples. It's
Well,
like,
yeah, I mean, lots of animals can get drunk. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen various animals drunk, but it's very funny. It's almost as funny as people being drunk, to be perfectly honest.
right,
Like elephants can get drunk. Like even wild natural elephants can get drunk because they eat fruit that's kind of gone off and fermented.
right,
And if they eat too much, they'll literally get pissed. Although it's not necessarily good because, frankly, much like humans, they get very aggressive
right.
and they tend to attack people when they're drunk.
No, that doesn't
Um,
sound fun with an angry elephant. No.
well, no. Why are we talking about elephants? We're supposed to be talking about
I don't know. You
ponies.
brought it up. You're the one who went into over on pissing on elephants and shit. The big problem with this cider is that they put a lot of care into it, so they don't quite get so much. So they tend to run out very quickly. So a new group comes to town, Flim and Flam, the world famous Flim-Flam brothers, who are
Yes.
very quick to introduce themselves with a long, long song.
Yeah, but it's a good song. I like the Flim-Flam Brothers Super Speedy Cider Squeedy 6000 song.
Yeah, it's a fun song. It's very kind of sing-songy, has a somewhat of a
I kind of felt it has
operatic
like a
quality where they kind of bring the story forward and they introduce themselves that way. So it
it felt
works for
very
that
sort of
purpose.
it felt very sort of early Disney. It's a kind of song you could imagine being in like Mary Poppins or something.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, they
You know,
are almost kind of dressed that way.
yeah, well, it's obvious right from the go that they're charlatans. I mean, they're called Flim and Flam for crying out loud. You know, subtlety is not exactly the show's strong point.
No, no.
I guess it's just like a lot of people like the song. It is one of the more popular songs. It's right up there with like Winter Wrap Up
Right.
as the more popular songs. The thing that always makes me laugh is because the song moves at such a fast speed, most people know the song but can't always remember all the lyrics,
Right.
which is great when you hear somebody trying to sing the lyrics. You know, like when you get to a part of the song, you don't
You gotta
quite
go
know the
deep
lyrics.
and the right is the
Yeah, yeah. You just kind of mumble your way through it, which is always brilliantly fun to watch someone try to do.
exactly.
But yeah, it's a good song. It's very popular. I mean, I enjoy it anyway. It's got a good sort of rhythm to it, and it's kind of one of those things that sort of sticks in your head.
Oh, supposedly, I don't really remember too much of it.
Oh,
I
well,
just
that's
remember
because you're not
I just
really
remember
paying
the cider
attention.
chant. They just kept chanting cider throughout it.
Well, chants are easier to remember than song.
But yeah, they introduced their invention, the Super Speedy Cider Squeezy 6000, which can make cider faster than the Apple family can produce it. So now it ends up becoming a battle of quality over quantity.
Well, it kind of does and it kind of doesn't. I mean, the whole sort of point of the episode is that, the Apple family take their time, and while it's not as fast, the quality of the stuff is better. And it kind of implies that Flim and Flam don't care about quality, but actually, that only really comes in at the end.
Yeah,
Like
because
when,
it's established that their machine will automatically check for whether the apples are good or bad and only send the good ones through, which they're basically automating the process, which
yeah,
makes sense. I mean, if they can put out so many. So, of course, they end up kind of in a John Henry esque battle of machine versus Pony in this case,
Yeah.
where they actually wager the farm for the exclusive rights to sell their cider in the town.
Yeah, which
So
doesn't
they
go quite so well.
no, it does not go well because they set it up where they'll have an hour to produce as many barrels as possible. And the brothers, they set their machine in motion, and the Apple family, they're working their best to try to get them, but they're only producing 1 barrel for every 3 that the brothers produce. So they're 3 behind. So the turning point is when the other 5 ponies say, hey, can honorary family help? So they end up helping them out, and they end up putting out 5 barrels for the brothers 3. So the brothers like, well, shit, we have to ramp up production. So they turn off their quality control mechanism. So they're
Yeah,
just pushing through everything.
yeah, and that's kind of their fault because it's not that their Super Speedy Cider Squeezy 6000 is
You just
like
like saying that
wrong or
name, don't you?
I like the ability to actually be able to say it when I say it properly. But if you could just call it the SSCS for short.
So
But that's what it is.
I'm guessing
Um,
that's what people call it in the fandom.
no, I literally just made that up like shortly
Okay.
before we started recording.
Okay,
So
that works.
I'm hoping it'll catch on, but you never know. It depends on if anybody ever watches these videos or not. I completely lost my train of thought then. What the hell was I saying?
It's not a fact that the cider is bad. It's just that they do it a lot faster.
Exactly. The problem is that it's them that screws up the whole thing because they turn off the quality control. It's kind of an interesting point in that sense because, you know, you think that they're the villain, so anything they do is going to be wrong. But actually, what they do is perfectly fine and legitimate, and they sort of screw themselves over in that sense.
Yeah, which is something I'll get into when we're discussing the rest of the episode. But the brothers end up winning, and they win the farm, which they end up turning it to call it Flim-Flam Fields. But
Makes
when the
sense.
ponies go up to buy their cider, it sucks.
Well, yes, of course, because they put in
They
all
have
the rotten
old
apples and
rotten apples and molten and debris and shit, and there's like, I got a rock in mine.
yeah, but the other thing is, surely only like the latter half of their stock of barrels would contain that. Because
Yeah,
they made all that group of barrels first, and then they turned off the quality control.
we were reaching very close to the end of the episode, so there it does have a rushed quality when they try to wrap it up very quickly because there was
Yeah.
only like 2 minutes left in the episode, so they kind of had to. Well, we really got to get things back to the status quo.
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, they only really put the two parters at the beginning and the end of the season, so everything has to be wrapped up in a half hour or so.
So yeah, they discover that their cider sucks. The ponies don't like them, so they leave town, and
Yes.
that was pretty much the end of the episode. Interestingly enough, when Applejack reports to Celestia, she says that she didn't learn anything,
Yeah, he
which
said, I already
is
knew this.
certainly an odd direction to go.
Yeah, it's just like I didn't learn anything today. I already knew the rule. I was showing everybody else that it was right. And
Yeah, I mean, it's true, though. She started off the episode believing in quality over quantity and that her friends would help her in a jam, and ended the episode believing the exact same thing. And even the other characters, the other main characters of the episode, Flim and Flam, don't really learn anything either. They're just
yeah,
off to swindle another town, I'm guessing.
yeah, well, presumably. The thing in that sense, it's kind of a non-episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is weird because it is a good episode. I mean, it's enjoyable while it's going on. You know, it's fun. You got that good song. You know,
And
you
it's
got all this
telegraphed as
stuff.
hell, but that's to be expected with a lot of these things.
When you've got a really good story, but you have to squash it down into half an hour, then you know that does kind of happen.
You have to squeezy it.
Yeah, well, you know, you got to squeeze out all the juice. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of a non-episode, but it's still a good sort of fun episode in that sense. It doesn't have to be all big and learning a lesson at the end of everything. You know, in that sense, it kind of implies that you don't have to learn a lesson because sometimes you already know what the lesson is, but sometimes you simply need to reinforce the lesson in
Right.
that sense. I don't know. I'm making it up now.
Sometimes that can be a good lesson to learn.
Yeah.
But I guess that's it for that episode.
Yeah, so I suppose the lesson of that one is that sometimes you don't have to learn a lesson, which
Yeah.
is in itself a lesson. Wait, what?
I have no idea what they're trying to teach. Maybe they were just trying to tell a story. Maybe they just wanted to introduce Flim and Flam.
They won't be back for a long while.
Oh, they do come back. I was thinking that they didn't come back at all.
They do. They came back due to popular demand.
Yeah, I could see them being quite popular.
Yeah, but it won't be for a long, long while.
Okay,
Yet.
well, we'll get into that when we get into that.
Yeah.
So, moving on, we move on to Read It and Weep. This episode has a very strange conflict in the sense that there seems to be a kind of a non-conflict.
I suppose.
Well, it starts off with Rarity and Pinky watching Rainbow Dash fly around, but she ends up crashing and breaking her wing, and pretty much completely destroys her, because if she can't fly, she is useless, and she cannot have any fun. So, while she is bedridden in the hospital, Twilight offers her a book from the hospital cart about a character called Indiana. I mean, Daring Do.
Well, of course it was based on Indiana. He's got the hat and everything, and I mean, it wasn't even trying to be subtle. Let's be honest. It's
Well,
clearly like
Daring
blatant.
Do has a pith helmet. Indiana Jones wears a fedora, but
Well, yeah, I mean, it's slight
it's
difference.
very much like those safari characters. It's a pith helmet. What do you expect?
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
whatever.
she offers her a book that she's pretty sure she enjoys, but Rainbow Dash says no, reading is for eggheads. And okay,
Yeah,
yeah, that's the conflict of this episode. Is she thinks that it's for eggheads, but they immediately break the conflict because the rest of the ponies are like, no, we don't mind reading at all. We like it. So reading may be good for you, but it's not good for me. And she just
yeah.
flat
I
out
mean,
refuses to do
it
it.
it is a sort of an odd situation in that, I guess it's like it almost falls into the stereotype that, because Rainbow Dash is the cool, sporty one, and it's the kind of stereotype that sporty people aren't that intelligent, I guess, and they don't like to read, which I don't know. If you watch enough news and look at some of these sportsmen, to be perfectly honest, I don't think it's that much of a fucking cliche. But it is kind of weird in the sense, but because they're kind of bringing the cliche in and then almost immediately breaking it, I guess it's not that bad in that
I
sense.
don't know. It seems to kind of promote the cliche that athletic people shouldn't be interested in this kind of thing. It's almost a sense of like anti-intellectualism. It's like you got reading is fine for you guys, but I don't need to read or whatever. And I really don't know what this exactly what they're trying to get across with this episode.
I think the point of the episode is to have a little bit of character growth for Rainbow Dash.
Yeah.
Because I will say the reading thing is something that does come back. If Rainbow Dash is like in the background during some scenes, you will actually see her reading now. So it is something that they keep as a permanent character trait for her in the future.
So kind of like with Tank.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it is a sort of a bit of character development episode. And also I think they just wanted to have some actiony type
Yeah, they just wanted
scenes.
an excuse to have Daring Do, which I mean, it's an interesting enough story. It's basically just a ripoff of Indiana Jones, but there's
Well, yeah.
nothing wrong with that, really.
No, I mean, if you're going to rip off Indiana Jones, you might as well do it well.
Yeah,
And
if you're
they
gonna rip
do it
something off,
quite
you might
well.
as well rip off the best.
Exactly. I'm going to have to watch those films again. Um,
Except for the fourth one.
well, to be honest, I can stomach the fourth one. I know it's stupid. I know it's crap. And I know the whole nuclear explosion fridge thing is just ridiculous. Do you know,
Uh,
do you know there's actually a fan theory that some people think that the entire fourth film is nothing more than a hallucination that Indy is suffering from a concussion in the fridge. He's suffering from a combination of a concussion and radiation poisoning.
well,
And so
there's a
the whole
theory in Final Fantasy VIII that Squall is dead at the end of the first case.
yeah, I've heard that as well, which has some evidence for it, but some evidence against, and it's all weird and stuff like that.
Fan theories are fun.
Yeah, they can be very hilarious, actually, sometimes. But yeah, that's the Indiana Jones fourth movie fan theory that he died. Well, he didn't die. He was just suffering from a massive concussion, and the whole thing was a hallucination.
So, speaking of hallucinations and getting into the story, as Rainbow Dash is about to finish the story, she kind of begrudgingly starts reading and she gets really into it. And as she is about to finish the story, she ends up getting discharged because her wing is fine. So, she has to do the completely logical choice of sneaking into the hospital to read the rest of the story, which they could have
Yes.
probably gone further with this. Where she had
Um,
to like sneak past a guard or something, or because it was done in the vein of one of these adventure stories where she has to sneak in and then she's running away. They even have her swinging across a vine across a cliff at one
Well,
point.
did you notice that it pretty much emulated the Daring Do book she was reading?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I did like the bit where she was swinging across the river and then the people chasing her just took the bridge. That was very funny. It's the interesting thing. I mean, when they're chasing her, you hear that dog barking.
Yeah. You
And
hear
then
the
when they
dog.
finally catch up with her,
You hear the
you
dog. You
see,
almost kind of hear like the cats growling, which there was nothing there. So it's like that's just kind of put in for effect.
yeah, that's kind of putting for the effect. But it's revealed that the dog barking is one of the mental patients who's escaped and is just barking like a dog as runs along with them, which is firstly really funny. But did you notice that person's cutie mark
Cutie mark
was
was a screw.
Yeah,
I was gonna
exactly.
point that out, so I was like screw loose or something.
Yeah, well, presumably, but here's the thing. Remember in the last episode, I mentioned the whole derpy thing and about how it was completely considered offensive. That particular thing was not considered offensive in the slightest. Like that people with some mental condition are, got a screw loose and they're barking mad, and it wasn't even looked at. People never even gave it a second look.
Well,
And
maybe the fact that it wasn't actually a plot point in the story.
I don't know.
I didn't think it was all. I didn't think that was that offensive,
I
but
didn't think Derby was offensive in the first place, but whatever. Anyway,
But yeah, so she has to come clean that she's been addicted to reading the book, and the friends are like, "We don't care. We like reading too. Now you like reading." And then Twilight offers her copy of the book, which I don't know why I focused on this, but she doesn't keep them in order. It's like she goes to
um,
pull it out, and she pulls out like the third one from the left, even though she clearly said that this is the first one in the series.
yeah, I put up the argument that maybe it's just in alphabetical order rather than release order, which it would be weird to do that. You know, if you got books or DVDs or anything like that, you put them in release order, don't you? Or I do anyway.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I don't know. Maybe that was just like a design oversight. I think they weren't really thinking about it when they did it.
Maybe.
I don't know.
But yeah, she offers to let her borrow the book and that she can borrow any other book in the series. So the episode ends with her reading and everything is good. This episode was again fairly non-episode. I mean, it was fun to kind of see the action of Daring Do, which I'm sure was kind of the entire purpose of the episode, was just kind of introduce his character and who you pointed out was basically a palette swap of Rainbow
Rainbow
Dash
Dash.
herself.
Yeah, because if you look at, I mean, obviously, Pegasus Pony look have a similar sort of style to them anyway. But if you actually look at like the hair was in stripes and everything like that, and it is essentially just a palette swap.
So then, of course, we have this just the adventure of Daring Do, and then her own outside is just kind of used as a framing device with
Pretty
kind of a
much.
somewhat pointless reading as fun moral to it in the end. I mean, I don't know. This episode is kind of a throwaway, I think.
Yeah, to be honest, I think this episode is probably slightly more throwaway than the previous one. But a Daring Do thing, again, that also became quite popular in the fandom as well. People like the idea of Daring Do.
Right, which I mean,
Um,
it's not a bad character.
no, I mean,
As
it's not
simple,
exactly
as
terrible.
simplistic as it is, it seems to make people seem to enjoy it. So there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, considering, I mean, these episodes are quite popular, but they are, I don't know, maybe that's why they're popular, because they're so sort of throwaway and there's no really big moral thing overshadowing the whole thing. They're
It's
just
like the
kind of,
entire purpose of the episode is just to have the episode. They don't want
yeah,
to.
pretty much. It's just to have a fun time with these characters rather than something actually going on that's like a big deal, which isn't a terrible
I
idea.
guess that's one theory. But yeah, I guess that will do it for these two episodes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good pair. It's a good
Oh,
pair.
moving on, I guess,
Yes,
to
season
Breaking
three.
Bad season 3.
We're into season three at last. Can you believe it? After the highly climactic ending to season two with the giant airplane crash, we pretty much pick up where it left off. It's only like I think it's like a fortnight or so later or something like that.
Just about, yeah.
Just to recap you, you've got Skylar has told Walter to get out after finding out about all the hospital bills and everything being paid off. You had the big airline crash after Jane's death with her father and everything like that. Jesse was at this rehab
Rehab clinic, yeah.
place. And that was pretty much where we left off. And where we pick up, we've got like sort of, information coming in about the airline crash and all that other sort of stuff. So 167 people died, and obviously Donald is held being responsible.
And you can tell how much that Walter is focusing on this because he has all these newspaper clippings saved.
Because Walter has clearly put the pieces together, like the fact that Jane's death affected Donald, which in turn caused the plane crash, and like he knows who Jane and Donald are. I mean, he didn't really know who Donald was directly, but he certainly knew who Jane was.
Right.
And sort of he's putting the pieces together, and even Jesse has been putting the pieces together.
And of course,
sort of
at this point, Jesse still doesn't know that Walter was there when Jane died. So Jesse is blaming himself, even though Walter knows this is definitely on him.
Yeah. Which of course is sort of interesting, and whether that'll even come up or not, it's hard to say. I don't know what it is, but today's episodes, or all the three of the episodes we're talking about today, are kind of non-episodes.
Yeah, not too much happened in this episode either.
You've got, so I mean, it largely focuses around the aftermath of the crash and how it's sort of affecting everyone around that. So Walter, I mean, at the beginning of the episode, Walter tries to burn his money and then quickly regrets doing it.
Yeah, he ends up tossing it into
which
the
is
pool, and it's like, oh my
he
god.
sets fire to himself as well, which is hilarious.
And you can sort of see him working this out. He's like, because this is definitely on him. He's totally torn up over this thing, but he realizes burning the money is not going to fix things, and it's probably going to make it worse because then those people would have died for absolutely nothing,
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
probably worse than dying for money. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a strange thing in that sense. While all that's sort of going on, Skylar, having sort of, kicked Walter out in the previous episode, is currently sort of making moves to divorce him completely. Like, this isn't just a temporary split. She wants to separate completely. And Flynn is like really angry about this because, like Skylar has her suspicions about Walter, but she doesn't actually know anything. Of course, she doesn't want to tell Flynn about it, who is just angry at being left out the loop about all this. So yeah, you got all these sort of things going happen, but nothing too much happens. You
No,
get
there's
Walter.
a lot of just kind
It's a
of
lot of just character
yeah, a
stuff,
lot of character study in this because
character interactions and things
yeah,
without too much
everybody's angry and
story.
nobody's really talking to each other. I mean,
Yeah.
Maria's angry with Skylar, Walter's angry with Skylar, Flynn is angry with Skylar. Flynn wants to be with his dad.
Yeah, I mean, in sort of Flynn's mind, there's no problem here. He as far as he's concerned, they should still be together, and he's not understanding why Skylar
And
is angry at
even if
him.
he does understand, he doesn't accept it because
Yeah.
his dad, as much as he was complaining earlier, he still cares about his dad, obviously.
Well, yeah, exactly. And yeah, so you get a lot of sort of character interactions. That Walter does actually move out in this episode because he was originally going to, and then the plane crash happened, so it got delayed. So he ultimately moves out, and while sort of that's going on, you got Jesse at this sort of rehab clinic place, sort of talking to this. I guess he's kind of like a camp leader.
Yeah, he's
It's
kind of
sort of
like a therapist or
therapist guy. He tells this story to Jesse and the rest of the group about how he accidentally killed his
daughter, I think.
6-year-old was sister. I thought it was.
Sister, I think it
I
might
think
have
it
been
was.
sister.
Yeah, I think it was sister because he said he was 18 and she was
Yeah.
6. And he wanted to get a drink and the shops were going to close in like 10 minutes. So he raced out the drive and accidentally killed her. And I was just sitting there thinking, I'm wondering how much of that is bullshit. Because these guys, for a living, lie through their teeth to get these people back on their feet and off drugs. So it's like, I don't know, maybe the guy was telling the truth. I don't even think he's going to show up again. So I don't know why I'm really discussing this in so much
I
detail.
think the rehab setting, a rehab clinic, is kind of a minor location.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it'll show up again because I mean, swears that he's off drugs, and to be honest, considering what's happened to him, he's probably telling the truth. I we'll wait and see on that one. We'll
Yeah,
see
we'll
what
see.
happens.
But
We'll
I,
have to.
you want to believe him. You want to know that he's been through enough. You want to think he's been through enough to finally go, okay, I can't handle this shit anymore.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
we saw him trying to get his life together in the last several episodes.
Mm.
This may just have been the final kick in the pants he really needed.
Yeah, he leaves the clinic and sort of goes to stay with Walter in Walter's little flat. Don't know how long that'll last though, because of course Jesse's got all his own money, so he could easily move into his own place. And so the other big thing that sort of really happens in this episode is when Skylar actually gives Walter the divorce papers. I mean, completely surprised me that when she suddenly came out with it, you said, because she doesn't really know where he got all this money. And she just comes out with it. He says, where do you think I got all this money? And she goes, you're a drug dealer. Just like that, bam, straight in there. And, Walter initially scoffs. And she sort of says how I put the, pieces together, like talking to Jesse Pinkman and, claiming about doing marijuana and all that stuff.
So she
And
kind of has the pieces together, but not quite all of them
yeah, not
fit.
quite all of them. But what surprised me the most was that Walter actually came clean about the whole thing.
Yeah,
First she accuses him of selling marijuana, then she moves over to cocaine, and he just goes, actually, no, it was crystal meth." And the look on her face was priceless. It's just like, hang on, this was supposed to be some bullshit theory, and you're
and you're
confirming
confirming it. Not
my
only
bullshit
confirming it, but
theory.
confirming that it's even worse than I thought.
Yeah. So bottom line from Skylar was that she will not tell anyone, apparently, as long as he signs the divorce papers. So that's a plot point that's up in the air and presumably going to come down in the next
Oh yeah,
episode.
definitely. But in her mind, she doesn't want to make him as an enemy, but she also doesn't want to be involved with it.
I can kind of understand like where it is. Suddenly realizing that Walter is a drug dealer or a drug creator at least. I think it took her so much by surprise. She really wasn't sure how to handle it. She just wanted to get him away.
Yeah,
In her mind, she's thinking, well, Walter's involved with drugs. Drugs are bad. Therefore, Walter must be cut out of our lives.
dogs are bad. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's not exactly incorrect to say that, is it?
No,
I
no.
know it's often quoted as a joke, but they are bad, let's be honest. So, yeah, so that was sort of one of the big points of
And the
sort of
other main big point had nothing to do with anybody who we've seen
yeah,
before.
I was saving this so I could talk about it all at once.
Yes.
Throughout the entire episode, you had these little cutaways, where they put a sort of strange yellow filter over it, which you said they do every time they're in Mexico,
Yeah, they do kind of a
something like
yellow
that.
filter in Mexico and a slightly blue filter up north,
Fair enough. I suppose it's like the sun and the ice and stuff like that. Or
I guess.
like the temperature goes up, so you have to, or down, so you have to put these weird filters on it.
Yeah,
Anyway,
exactly.
yeah. So throughout the whole episode, we get these little cutaway sections, which, for the record, I'm really glad it's not a cutaway section of something at the end of the fucking series. This is clearly something that's like happening in
Happening
tandem.
simultaneously, yeah.
Yeah, just elsewhere. So we're not back at the fucking black and white swimming pool again, or some new variant of it. We are essentially seeing these two guys as they make their way across Mexico. It starts with them, what I assume is some kind of ritual, crawling along the floor on their bellies to this sort of shrine, which, it seems like some sort of ritual because they seemingly pray to this sort of shrine idol thing, which looks a bit like death, doesn't it? It looks a bit like the Grim Reaper because you got the skull, and I'm pretty sure I saw it holding like a scythe thing. So I don't know. And they pin to the back wall this picture of Heisenberg. Just the hat, the glasses, and the
Which
beard.
that picture of Heisenberg has actually gone on to have kind of a fans of its own. It's on like T-shirts and
Yeah, I would
stuff.
imagine that. I mean, that's a pretty iconic picture. I mean, just for the show, let alone anything else. So they're sort of presumably either going to kill him and they're wishing for success, or they're actually just trying to wish him death directly, perhaps. I
Or a little
suppose,
of both.
or maybe both. Either works, I guess. And then you see them sort of moving through these sort of stages. They take these clothes from these people, but leave them a car. They literally sort of abandoning
And they don't
everything.
say anything. They just kind of
No,
walk
no,
into
this is the
their
brilliant
place,
thing.
take the clothes off the clothesline.
Yeah, and then they leave the car keys on this goat, which is hilarious. I mean, they don't say anything about the entire episode, so it's clear, these guys mean business.
Yeah,
They
they
are
really kind
they
of
are
build up the menace of
professional.
these characters that they're
Yeah,
just everybody's afraid of them.
yeah. I mean, clearly, like they are professional. They are clearly going to be good at what it is they do. I mean, like I said, I think they might be like hitmen, I suppose. Like assassins out to try to kill Heisenberg, sent from some Mexican drug cartel because they're worried about his crystal blue. Because it ends with them trying to, or successfully, I should say, crossing the border into Texas in the back of this van with sort of hay bales
Yeah,
covering over
it's
everything.
designed to kind of smuggle them in because it's supposed to look like just a solid thing of hay, but no, it's hollow on the inside. You
Yeah,
got immigrants on the
and
inside.
yeah, so they're all trying to cross the border into, or successfully crossing the border into Texas. And there's this really chatty kid on there who's just like talking to them, saying, "Oh, it's going to be really great in America, yada yada yada." And then he spots something that I think is going to be quite iconic: that these guys have got shoes that have a sort of pointy tip with a little skull icon on it. And he spots that and instantly shuts up.
Yeah, because
Like,
he knows he's just crossed somebody very, very bad.
and kind of doesn't regret it for very long though, because he's almost instantly killed along with everybody else in the back of the truck, including the driver. And then they set the truck on fire and it explodes rather spectacularly. Like I said, it was really fun just watching them walk away from
Yeah,
this.
just not even looking at the explosion because I mean that's an old cliche, but it still looks so cool.
It is really cool. I mean, didn't nostalgia critics say that that's like one of those big cliches, like
Yeah,
walking away from an
he's like, yeah, I
explosion?
know it's a big wildfire. I don't care. I see explosions all the time. They bore me now.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, praise to them as actors for being able to do that. I mean, you said that they might have been put
It
in,
might have been a composite shot.
but I don't know. It looked pretty good for a composite shot. I mean, for a TV show, usually you can tell if they're put into it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It did look like they were actually there. So I don't know, but yeah, it was a
They
very
could have
good
also
shot.
used a deep field camera so it looked like they were closer to it than they actually were.
Yeah, well, that's possibly true. I mean, considering they did look very close to it. Like, at one point, I honestly thought that the fire was actually going to hit them at one point. So, yeah, I suppose. But so it's interesting. You got these guys who are clearly after Walter, presumably for bad reasons.
And
And
they're
we
definitely
don't,
not afraid to kill like a dozen people
yeah,
or absolutely who did absolutely nothing to them. They know who they are, so they've seen them or they've seen them. So
yeah, they've seen too much, presumably. Yeah, I mean, not too much happened in this episode of any significant
well,
consequence.
what did happen is certainly
I
it's
mean, what
certainly
did
a way to
happen was
start this
big.
season. I mean, it's
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know
you
that.
set up
I mean,
these two
Skylar knows
killers.
that Walter's a drug dealer now. She's trying to divorce him. Walter is now living on his own. Jesse's back with him, and you have these two guys gunning for them. That's certainly a way to set up a season.
Oh God, I completely missed one of the scenes. Walter briefly returns to De Poros Hermanos, which I made a fucking point of remembering the name of, because I used to call it the chicken restaurant before. And now that I know that Gus is likely to be a recurring character, I've actually made a point of remembering De Poros Hermanos. But
Los Poyos,
Los
hermanos.
Poros, Los Poros. Fuck
I
off.
just love how you said you remember it and then you still got it wrong.
I was close. I
No,
was
no,
fucking close. Shut up. Look, I don't speak. Like, I have learned more Mexican watching this show than I learned French when I was at school. All right, so shut the fuck up.
it's Spanish, not Mexican.
Did I say Mexican?
Yeah.
Well, it's the same language. Let's be honest. Mexicans speak Spanish.
Please send all hate mail to him.
Oh, I'll take the hate mail because we could do with some fucking mail. Let's be honest. How many comments have we had? None.
Uh,
Oh God. I completely lost my train of thought. What the fuck was I
you're
saying?
talking
Oh
about Los
yeah.
Poyos Hermanos and Gus.
Yeah, and he goes back to see Gus, and Gus essentially offers him, says, I will give you $3 million for 3 months of your time. And Walter is just like, you can almost see the internal struggle he's
Yeah, because
having.
he came there to quit. He was like, I'm done. I want to turn my life around. I have my $500,000. That's enough. But he's like, no, I
$3 million.
want to give you more.
Yeah, and I can't help but feel Walter's going to go back to him and say yes at some point, obviously, because that's going to be fun. To be honest, if that doesn't happen, I'm kind of curious to see if Gus will retaliate in some way, perhaps because he knows who Walter actually is. Like, he doesn't just know the Heisenberg name. He actually knows who Walter actually is, which makes it for an interesting dynamic. And because Gus is so sort of quiet and soft spoken, it was really hard to tell
Yeah, he's really hard
what he
read.
was thinking.
Which is kind of a testament to his ability as a businessman to know he knows that you don't get good in this business by making enemies.
Mm,
It helps to be very friendly and know exactly what you're doing. You don't want to
yeah,
alienate anybody.
exactly. So I don't know if that'll come back into it as well. I think that's all the important plot points.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, so big divorce going on, couple of assassins coming in, potential future work with Gus. Hard to see where the series is going to go from here, but they've got a lot of sort of open potential now.
Yeah, they did start the season off by introducing a lot of new plot threads that it's going to be fun to see how those work out.
Well, it will be for me. You already know.
I haven't watched it in a while, so it's to see how, like, in what way they work out, not just the end result of it.
I suppose. So anyway, yeah, that's
Yep, that
today's
does it
episode.
for these episodes. And
Please, for the love of God, leave a comment, people. Please,
yes, leave a comment. We like reading comments. And
please.
take care, everybody.
Goodbye. Please.
Please.